Alright, welcome to our landed webinar, and this is webinar number 4 of the year 2023. Thank you for signing up and good to see you here. And if this is your first time joining our PLB webinar, do of course feel free to key in your questions in the chat box. And how we're going to conduct our webinar is that at the end of every webinar, our team will consolidate all the questions, and then we will prepare all the answers and we will dish out in a Q&A PDF back to your email addresses so that you can look at also all the questions by the other participants for our webinar. So for today's topic, we're going to talk about the landed property market. And in specification, we're going to talk about on this particular question of should we rebuild A&A or buy a brand new landed home in the year 2023. So these are the three things that we will dive into. Now, of course, we have a lot of things to talk about pertaining to the landed market as well as landed property investment. But just for today's webinar context, we're going to dive into some of the costly mistakes that some buyers might make when buying a landed property, some of the key factors to consider when you're selecting your next landed home purchase, as well as this main theme of today of whether should you rebuild, do an A&A, or should you buy a brand new from a developer this year. Now, if this is your first time joining us, and if you're new to PropertyLimBrothers, we create a lot of content on our YouTube channel. Of course, for myself, I run two companies. One is PropertyLimBrothers Media. The other one is, of course, our PLB Realty. And our team right now comprises of a total of 118 very fabulous teammates that have the same passion and we're working towards the same passion to create a better content space as well as a better experience for real estate consumers in Singapore. So these are some of our content. So we have both video content as well as our editorial as well. So head on to propertylimbrothers.com. You'll be able to look at some of the articles that we're talking about pertaining to the landed property scene. We also, of course, under our buy tab, you can have a look at some of the landed properties currently for sale right now by PropertyLimBrothers. And these are actual homes that are for sale by our home sellers. Recently, our team over the past 12 months, we have deep dive into a lot of different kinds of visualization. And that has helped a lot of our landed home sellers to better position their homes. It has also helped our landed home buyers as well to visualize some of the possible things that they can do for their landed home after they purchase a landed property. So these are just some examples of how we have used architecture visualization within our home tour videos in order to showcase like where is the right position to put in a lift, where are some of the right positions to actually enhance your layout in your landed home, having to do a little bit of A&A, or maybe if you were to rebuild, what are some possible layouts that you can actually do for your brand new home. This is an example of an existing home, having that split level kind of concept, and how can you build actually a ramp in order to solve some of the wheelchair friendly issues as well. And of course, for existing homes like this, with the visualization, it also helps our buyers to better enhance their imagination of what they can do after they buy. One of the recent homes that were sold at Jalan Bambong, and this was sold at about $8 million, it has a blank roof at the top. And of course, this is just an example of how we help our home buyers to better visualize what they can do after they purchase. And recently, we have also helped our clients to sell this home at Lorong Asu. And this home actually has been in the market for quite a fair bit of time. And the key rationale is because this home has a very long driveway. And of course, for long driveway, not every buyers will love this kind of home because most of the time, a lot of buyers do not know how to utilize the long driveway. And this is fantastic for homeowners with a lot of cars. And what we've done with this home tour is that we shared very transparently that it has a long driveway. And of course, if this layout is for you, do come for a physical viewing. And of course, right now, this home is already sold. It has been sold within 2 months after PLB team took over the listing and remarketed and repositioned this home. And of course, these are just some examples of what our architecture visualization team has done for the home tour itself. And thus, let's come back to today's webinar. Who is this webinar for? And in terms of landed property, we usually like to talk about 4 different main pillars in the landed property market. If you have been following a lot of our PLB landed home tour content, we also weave in a lot of different educational elements for home buyers to understand a little bit better what are some of the key categorizations of different types of landed homes, as well as the key factors that you need to look out for when purchasing a landed property. Because landed property is a huge quantum purchase, and you need to take note of certain differences when it comes to comparison in terms of pricing, when it comes to comparison in terms of different types of homes, as well as different locations of the landed property. And when we look at these 4 topics, this is the main thing that we will deep dive into for today's webinar. This year, we're also going to talk about another 2 to 3 rounds of landed webinars, and I will do my best to deep dive into the different types of topics later on throughout the year. We want to talk about selection of landed today, particularly for homeowners that are buying a landed home for their own family stay with a perspective of price appreciation. So today's topic is deep diving into this particular segment. We're not going to dive very deep into basics of landed properties because if let's say you're very new to the landed scene, do head on to our YouTube channel at PropertyLimBrothers. Look at the landed playlist. You'll be able to probably have a very good sense of the landed market just by looking at maybe about 3 to 4 home tour videos. And of course, some of the webinars this year, maybe in the next few months, we'll talk about basics of landed properties if you're very new to the landed market. But for today, we presume that you already know a little bit more about the landed market, and we want to deep dive into this particular topic. So it's still important for me to share some key fundamental concepts with everybody so that the discussion later on will be more fruitful for you. So first thing, in PLB, we have 4 different categorizations of landed home, and this is how we help our buyers to ascertain some of the value point and price comparison metrics when it comes to selecting homes. So when we say category 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're actually trying to put the landed homes in 4 different segments so that we can have a very clear understanding of the state of condition of each landed home. So to simplify for everybody, category 1 homes are homes that are 30 years old and above, and these are homes that are meant for rebuild. And category 2 homes are homes that are maybe about 20 odd years old and they are meant for A&A. And category 3 homes are usually homes that are below 15 years old or maybe below 20 years old, or they're still in very good condition and you just need to do internal renovation. And of course, category 4 are brand new homes directly from developers. Now this is of course the categorization of inter and corner terrace. Inter terrace means that you're in between homes, and of course these 2 are inter terraces, these 2 are corner terraces. And semi-detached homes are homes like this with setback at the side, very similar to corner terrace, but of course when it comes to tiering in terms of its status level, inter terrace is the start point of a landed home, followed by corner terrace, followed by semi-Ds, and then detached homes. So semi-Ds will be like this, and of course detached homes will be like the red one over here. So some of the key regulations when it comes to subdivision of land. So for example, if a developer were to purchase old land that is having an old house sitting on top of the land, and it's a huge piece of land and they want to subdivide it, they'll have to follow these guidelines, having that plot width minimally for certain status of home. So for example, if you want to build maybe from a huge piece of land, they want to build 2 corner terraces and 1 inter terrace. The inter terrace by minimum will have to be 6 meters in width, and total plot area has to be 1614 square feet, which is 150 square meters. And if they want to build 2 semi-Ds on this plot of land, let's say they purchase a detached, they want to subdivide it into 2 semi-Ds, by minimum standard, both semi-Ds must have at least 8 meters of width in terms of its plot width size, and total size must be 200 square meters, which then translates to 2152 square feet, which is why you see some brand new homes having that 2152 square feet or maybe 2002 square feet status is because they have been subdivided, and that's the bare minimum requirement needed. So landed home also has another 4 different categories, and I want to introduce that to you today. So for quadrant number 1, homes that have high growth and low rental yield belongs to quadrant number 1. So quadrant number 2 are actually homes that belongs to high growth, high rental yield. And then quadrant 3 belongs to homes that are low growth, high rental yield. And then quadrant 4 will be homes that are low growth, low rental yield. So just to bring this quadrant up to the whole entire residential market, if let's say you are looking at both landed properties as well as condominiums for investment point of view, where do we put a landed property? Now, landed homes, they belong to quadrant 1 predominantly. The reason is because a landed home quantum is larger, and landed homes are for growth. They are like high growth stocks. They are like high growth equities. And then in terms of rental yield, they're actually not as fantastic as private condominiums. Condominiums, of course, falls into many different spectrum, because if you look at small properties like 1-bedder or maybe a studio apartment, This kind of homes, they actually have low growth but high rental yield and high rental speed as well. Their vacancy period is very low because if you buy a one-bedder, very easy to rent out. But when you talk about growth, then a penthouse will have a better growth but a lower rental yield because your entry quantum is bigger, but your rental yield in comparison with your total rental collected is lower. So I will categorize landed property as a quadrant 1 kind of home. But of course, when you look at then landed properties by itself, let's say if I were to categorize an inter-terrace, semi-D, corner terrace, and a detached home, then I will place the inter-terrace in the categorization of high growth, high rental yield as well, because inter-terraces have a lower quantum, but their rental can be compared to corner terraces as well as semi-detached homes if the amount of bedrooms is about the same, if the build-up is about the same, because for tenants' point of view, in the terrace and the corner terrace, not too much of a difference as long as there are enough bedrooms. If the look and feel is about the same, the build-up is about the same, from a tenant's point of view, it's not too much of a difference. So for inter-terraces, they belong to sort of like the Q2 quadrant. And very quickly, for some of our friends who are newer to the landed market, and let's say if you are considering to enter into the landed property market, some of the key reasons why landed properties are so popular is as follows. And one very, very important rationale on why landed homes are popular in Singapore is because of the fact that you're buying two items at one shot. So what are the two items? Compared to buying a condominium, you're buying the strata space. That means you're buying the strata space that is in the air. And let's say, for example, you buy the 2,000 square feet, 4-bedder apartment. You're owning that strata space in the entire condominium complex. However, when you buy a landed home, you're owning two items at one go. Firstly, you own the build-up area of the structure. So for example, if this is a 3.5-story home and has a total build of 5,002, you own the structure and you own the build-up area. Number two is that you also own the land that the structure is sitting on. And this is what landed homeowners are after, because you own the land and this land belongs to you. And for today's context as well, we want to put in another consumption is that we are only focusing on freehold and 999 years pure landed homes. So we're not going to talk about cluster properties. We're not going to talk about strata homes. We're not going to talk about Sentosa homes. We're also not going to talk about 99 years properties. And at the same time, we are also not going to talk about GCBs. So we're largely talking about pure landed homes, freehold, 999 years on the main Singapore island. Now, landed is also becoming a class of its own. It's a great store of value, and later we'll deep dive. And of course, you've seen a lot of news about the GCB market. But of course, GCB market is a prestige property in a class of its own. So for today's context, we'll largely talk about the main predominant landed properties on the main island. And in the last 24 months, there has been a lot of articles talking about the fact that landed homes are now really becoming a wealth preservation status, and we're going to deep dive later into it. One of the key reasons is also because of the fact that if you look at the total residential inventory in Singapore, 74% of the residential properties belongs to HDB apartments, which has about 1.2 million units. And then if you talk about the total size of non-landed residential properties, meaning condo, apartments, and ECs, they comprise of about 340,000 units. Private landed, pure landed, they comprise of about 73,000 units, and it's of course extremely rare. Of course, some of you might ask me, hey, Melvin, there's 74,000 landed properties, but landed properties can only be owned by Singaporeans. And of course, that's a very good question. And let's have a look at how many Singaporeans are there right now. So of course, in the next 6 to 7 years, once we hit towards 2030, we're going to attain close to about 3.5 million Singaporeans in terms of total population. Now, just by a fact of 5%, if let's say there are 5% of Singaporeans that are interested to own a landed property, 3.5 million, 5% is close to about 175,000 Singaporeans that might be interested for this private landed property. And of course, that is close to about double or maybe at least 2.5 times the amount of demand. But later, we're going to deep dive a lot into the population figures as well. And most importantly, this number is not growing. There are only 73,000 landed homes in Singapore. The supply is pretty stagnant already. And any asset that has a higher demand than its supply, it will see a faster value and price appreciation on its asset value. And of course, one of the appeal of landed home is that the landed home allows you to configure it. You can A&A it. Let's say after you live in it for 20 years, you pass down to your children, they can tear it down and rebuild. It has flexibility to change. And the reason is because you own the land. And you can, of course, amend the structure as long as it coincides with BCA and URA regulations. So last but not least is that it also allows homeowners to actually configure design and architecture to their own liking, as well as configure internally the amount of bedrooms that you want, whether you want a lift, whether you want a hanging garden, whether you want a pond, you want to build a pool. There's a lot of flexibility in landed homes. And of course, that's also one of the key ways to enjoy very high ceiling heights, especially with the envelope architecture in today's market. Now, we are not going to talk about Sentosa homes, but I just want to show you this chart. So as you can see, in terms of the 99 years landed properties in Sentosa, of course, Sentosa homes are a very small population, and Sentosa homes are the category of landed homes that allows international audience. So any buyers from the world, they can buy landed homes in Sentosa. And you saw this deep in the average transacted pricing. The key reason was because of the introduction of additional buyer stamp duty for foreigners. Of course, right now it has picked up steam again back into 2022, 2023. But we're going to leave this for one of the webinars in this year on the behavior of Sentosa homes. Now, a quick run through of the recent happenings in the real estate scene as well as in the global scene. So Sing dollar is still very strong in terms of Asia's resilient currency. And recently, of course, we have a lot of distress from some of the banks in America. And this has, of course, populated into a lot of different topics. A lot of people are actually speculating, or maybe they are of this theory that though the word bailout is not used, but is technically like a stealth bailout in terms of the deposits that the government, in terms of the Fed Reserve, they want to make good for some of these banks like Silicon Valley Bank, as well as some issues with Credit Suisse, and of course what is happening mainly for the 4 banks that has been top of the news for the last 2 weeks. And what might happen, in my own opinion, is that over the next few months, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Federal Reserve. And what the Fed is going to do is that in terms of its rate hikes program, they will definitely have to slow down because it's going to add a lot of pressure to the banks. Because what has happened over the last 2 years is that from 2022, there are 7 rounds of rate hikes. This year, there's already 2 rounds. And if the rate hikes were to continue too aggressively, it's going to create a lot of distress to the banks, because in terms of arbitrage, they are going to face a lot of issues. And then what might happen is that if rate hikes stop, and if the Fed were to start reducing its Federal Reserve rate through rate cuts, then mortgage interest rates throughout the world, in US as well as in Singapore, is going to take a downward pressure. And what might happen when mortgage interest rates start to drop is that buyers will then become more confident and they might come in back to the market in perhaps the end of this year or maybe next year. And of course, do tune into our Nuggets on the Go channel, where we have our banter series as well as our singular series, where we talk a lot about the market condition globally, as well as how it relates back to Singapore real estate market. Now, these are home prices in terms of the overall private property market. And of course, there's been a lot of articles about the wealth preservation status, buyer stamp duty, does it really add an impact? And of course, when you look at the latest round of buyer's stamp duty increment, the impact comes largely once you buy properties above the $5 million range, then you will see a little bit more significant impact. But of course, for home buyers that are into landed homes, this impact is a little bit more like a wealth tax. And I think for serious home buyers that are really into buying landed homes as a wealth preservation status, this does not have a very huge impact on the ground based on what we've seen so far over the past 1 month. Now, we're going to dive straight into some of the key things about the overall real estate scene. And of course, if we look at the latest real estate bubble risk index from UBS, Singapore ranks very low. In fact, it's actually just touching the undervalued graph. And for compared to a lot of countries where the bubble index is a little bit higher, Singapore is still deemed to be a pretty undervalued country overall compared to the rest of the world. And our rounds of cooling measures has also made our real estate scene a little bit differently. As you can see, we have 13 to 14 rounds of cooling measures, but similarly, our real estate prices are still rising pretty gradually. And these are the rounds of cooling measures which we think the government could not remove any more cooling measures at this point in time. In fact, they can only add on should our property price continue to rise aggressively. Quick disclaimer is that the things that we're sharing in our webinars are definitely for sharing purposes and knowledge sharing purposes. And a lot of things are from our own research and opinions. And of course, do your own market research. Do consult your consultants. And if you want to make any serious decision, do make sure that you exercise financial prudency as well. Our style of webinars has no products push. If you have been with us for a few webinars, you probably will understand that we do not push any particular products for any developers. If we do collaborate with any developers, we'll say it upfront in our webinar title, saying that, you know, we are collaborating with this developer, talking about this product or talking about this new launch. So we'll be very upfront how we conduct our webinars. And quick introduction on myself. My name is Melvin Lim. I'm the co-founder and CEO of PropertyLimBrothers Media as well as PLB Realty. Our team comprised of 118 fabulous teammates that makes up of about 50% from Media HQ team. 50% of them are real estate full-time consultants in the PLB Realty arm. I myself am a property investor as well. I'm very passionate about the real estate space, and personally over the past 6 years I've filmed a lot of real estate content, and do head on to our channel to have a look at a lot more content if you're keen to understand a little bit more. Now, why do property buyers and investors aim for landed homes? Now, the key reason is because of supply. And we need to talk about supply, because once we understand macro, it allows us to understand micro as well as selection factors. So I'm of this school of thought that is very important to understand about the macro landscape, because once you understand the macro landscape, you can make very good and wise decisions when it comes to property investment. So by understanding the macro landscape, it gives you more confidence. It also helps you to avoid risky investments, and it helps you to make wise decisions on good investments. Now, this was a white paper that was published in 2013, and this, of course, is now the trajectory of where our government wants to go in terms of population size. So by 2030, we're going to hit close to 7 million. And in terms of the overall inventory in the residential market, we need to understand this. Why? It's because when our population now from 5.9 million scales to 6.9 million, everybody in Singapore needs a home. Whether they're going to rent, whether they're going to buy, everybody needs a home. And we can see from the COVID pandemic period, homes are even more essential. And that have gave rise to a lot of behavior. People want to buy bigger homes because they work from home, they exercise from home. People now want to rent homes because they want their own space. There's also been a lot of behavior change as well. Understanding the amount of available stock helps us to understand the demographics of Singapore, because our land is very scarce, and this is basically the amount of stock that we have. Although our government still have balanced land available under their land bank, but take note, these are to be released as government land sales, and GLS are largely 99 years. They are largely meant for private apartments as well as HDB apartments. And thus, when you look at landed property, it becomes a very, very scarce asset. And this is basically what is happening in the total amount of population that is owning private condos and apartments. And later I'll share with you why I need to share with you about this particular segment, is because if you look at this segment, this is the only segment that is open to international market. And out of the 340,000 condos and apartments, about 68,000 are owned by foreigners and PR, 262,000 are owned by Singaporeans. The foreigners and PRs, they are not really selling their homes, because the moment they sell and they buy back a private property, they have to pay the new ABSD. And thus, when we look at this, even for the condos and apartments market, the supply elasticity is becoming more and more sticky. And let's have a look at this, and later I'll sum it up for you very quickly. In 7 years' time, what's going to happen is that we're going to see a 50-50 concept. Every 2 person that I meet on the street, one is a Singaporean, one is a foreign citizen. And of course, with that, it increases the economy, GDP, dynamic of our labor force. These are, of course, great growth plans. But what we need to understand is that this is basically the 50% of population that will be eligible to buy landed homes if they want to. And thus, when we compare HDB apartments in terms of stock, we look at non-landed in terms of stock, and you look at landed homes. Now, what do you see here? Or maybe let's do a little bit of Q&A. Let's key in the chat box below on what are your observation of these two charts when you look at these two charts. So maybe I can give you a little bit of hint. You look at this, and of course you look at this. What do you see? Let's have a 5-second quiz time for you to key in. And of course, the key observation here is that in terms of supply growth, it is stagnating. And the reason is because there are no more, or technically speaking, there are no vast amount of land that the government will introduce to build landed properties. Because landed properties takes up a lot of space, you can only build 2.5 or 3.5 level. It will make more sense for our government to release the government land as a land to build high-rise condominiums and apartments. So it makes more sense for a land scarce Singapore. But even at 340,000, and of course every year, there are going to be new launches, and of course every new launch, every government land sale can build an averagely of about maybe 400 to 500 units. But this is already at an undersupply situation, in my own opinion. And I think it is definitely at an undersupply situation because we just need to look at the take-up rate in terms of the new launches. Even for this year, it shows that there's a lot of underlying demand. And private properties are open to international demand as well. And of course, this space will still continue to do well. But in my opinion, I think this, of course, will be the largest driver if you're hunting for an asset type that has the fastest level of growth. And this is definitely one of the key components, which are landed properties. The reason is because landed properties in Singapore has the most inelastic price versus supply relationship. What do I mean by that? Basically, in economics, when price of a product or asset or a commodity goes up, it attracts more people to come in to create the supply. Let me give you an example. Just look at maybe, although gold is not a very good illustration because it's very hard to mine gold, but as price of gold increased in the past, a lot of gold miners want to come in to mine more gold because they want to take part in this trade. They want to take part to own gold and mine gold so that they can also enjoy the price status of this particular commodity. But what we're trying to ascertain here is this. If let's say I were to compare private condos versus landed property in Singapore, when the price of condominiums goes up, more supply comes in because our government want to make sure that the price don't escalate further. Thus, they introduce more government land sales for developers to bid in order to satisfy the demand for developers to create more homes. And thus, this relates back to this fundamental term in economics, is that when the price of this asset type goes up, in the terms of condominiums, supply comes in and supply get increased in the sense. But for landed property, it's very different in Singapore because even though when the price goes up, supply technically finds it very hard to be increased because there's just this limited amount of landed homes in Singapore. There's always being maybe I shouldn't use the word recycled, but I would say that it's always being recycled in the sense that developers will buy up old land, they will either subdivide it and build new ones to be sold in the resale market, but you're always hovering with the same amount of landed homes in Singapore. So thus, it has a very inelastic kind of relationship between price and supply. And what this means is that because of the fact that supply is the most restricted, when price goes up, landed home supply remains largely the same, and thus when you own a landed home, you're sitting on an asset that appreciates by itself as you own it through the years. And this is a fantastic asset to own if you are after something that has very strong growth and high appreciation. Now, last chart to showcase to everybody, and then we'll head on to the main segment, is that, yes, I would definitely advise our clients to move towards the private property scene in terms of whether owning a condominium or owning a landed home. But if you have the capability and ability, do of course dive very deep into owning a landed property as a form of longevity and as a form of price growth appreciation asset. And take note that 3.5 million Singaporeans, as long as let's say there's 5% that's keen in landed homes, there's already close to about 175,000 Singaporeans that are eligible to buy landed homes. I mean, most importantly is that a lot of the landed buyers, when they get into the landed market, they actually upgrade and downgrade within the landed spectrum. For example, they get into inter-terrace, after a few years they move up to semi-D, move to detached, and then they move back into inter-terrace, or they pass on the homes to their kids. And of course, a lot of demand comes from the existing landed home owners as well as from condo owners that wants to upgrade for more space. We do see some HDB upgrader families as well that upgrades directly into the landed market. And not forgetting this portion here is that a key disclaimer and an observation is that landed real estate, because of the fact that it's high quantum, when you want to exit next time, also take note that because of the fact that you're owning a high quantum asset, you need to spend more time to find the next buyer. So when it comes to selling a landed home, it is both an art and a science. And because of this particular fact, it's very important that when you enter into a landed home, you need to tick off a list of checklists to ensure that you're buying something that gives you an ease of exit in 5, 8, 10 years time. And in PLB, we have this PropertyLimBrothers landed moat analysis. Moat analysis has 3 key apexes. First one are 7 factors of IBA. That means these are the 7 factors that will help you to increase your buyer audiences in future when you want to exit. Now, of course, some of you might be saying that, Melvin, I want to own a landed home forever. Yes, that's possible. We have seen some clients that own it forever. They buy a freehold landed, they pass on to their children as legacy. And of course, their children might choose to sell it, they might choose to keep it, depending on the next generation. However, it is always important, in my opinion, to have a possible exit plan. Because maybe in 5, 7, 10 years time, you might want to relocate, you might be having a plan to move on to a condominium that is a single level for your retirement years. You always want to have at least a possibility of an exit. And because of this idea and because of this possible exit plan, it's important that you buy something that allows you to increase your buyer audiences in future. Because you don't want to hold a landed property that in future you find that it's very hard to exit, very hard to sell. And maybe you want to realize your gain. Maybe you have bought a landed home for $3 million. After about 15 years, you can exit at $8 million. But you find that, oh my goodness, it's very hard for me to exit because I bought something that there's a very restricted buyer audience. Now, secondly is that you want to buy something that has an increased amount of price acceptability, and we have 7 factors here. Of course, the third thing is that you want to buy something that your home has a key component that it doesn't have many unexpected outcomes. And for today's webinar, I'm not able to share all 21 kind of factors with you because that's going to take maybe about, 8 hours or 9 hours. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to share with you some quick components within this spectrums right here. I hope that this will add value to you in your journey. But do follow us for the rest of the webinars for this year because we will definitely try our best to cover all. Now, one more key component statement is that the higher the quantum, you also need to note that in future when you want to sell your landed home, landed buyers have very specific requirements, especially when the landed property is a higher quantum. So, when you want to sell your inter-terrace compared to when you want to sell detached, you will find that when selling your inter-terrace is actually much easier compared to selling a detached. Now, the rationale is because your buyer audience is different. And why is that so? Let's say you own 2 properties. You own an inter-terrace that is currently valued at, let's say, $5 million. You own a detached that is valued at $9 million. You are putting them both in the market. You'll realize that you have more buyer audience for the $5 million property because inter-terrace is an entry-level landed property for many aspiring landed home buyers. And you're going to have more audiences because at a lower value right here, which is at $5 million, there are more people that can afford a $5 million home compared to buyer audiences that can afford a $9 million home. And the $9 million buyer is going to have more stringent requirements because the $9 million buyer have options. They can buy an old land that is in Cat 1 to rebuild. They can choose from Cat 3 homes. They can go for Cat 4 homes. And they're going to have a lot of specific requirements. And of course, we have seen many homes that sometimes because of a little bit of layout issue, land plot issue, facing direction issue, or maybe a lack of 1 to 2 bedrooms, or the inability to have a lift provision, then the buyer simply walk away. And thus, it's very important to learn about what are some of these 21 factors, because these are the success factors that will allow you to have an easier exit. And when you have large audiences waiting to buy your landed home, you actually have a prized possession. And that allows you the advantage and ability to enjoy more offers, more competing offers, and a faster exit. Okay, now let's dive in. And what this helps is that it serves two objectives. Number one, the moat analysis serves the objectives of increasing the speed of exit. Number two, it increases the price of exit. And let's talk about the first key point. First fundamental is about increasing price acceptability. Second one is increasing buyer audiences. Third is to reduce your unexpected outcome. And let's talk about the first thing that we want to talk about today is disparity effect on time. And this is under the category of increasing price acceptability. So what is this disparity in terms of time? Now, this is an example of how we always help our clients to ascertain some of the key success factors when selecting a landed home. Now, firstly is that we want to look at, let's say, if somebody has a budget of $6 million. And take note that when you're buying a landed home, we definitely need to start with the overall investment range as a key start point. Now, the rationale is because of this. If you have $5 million to enter into a landed market, compared to a $7 million budget to enter into a landed market, compared to a $10 million budget to enter into a landed market, the strategies differ. Because why? Your choices increase as your quantum investment range increase. With $10 million, you can explore places like Upper Bukit Timah, you can explore places like District 10, and of course you have a wide array of choices. You can go for a semi-D in D10, or you can buy a mega detached home in District 19. So because of your quantum investment entry range, you have a lot more choices if you have a higher quantum. Thus, the investment strategy differs of even whether should you do an A&A, rebuild, or should you buy brand new. And thus, this is an example if let's say somebody having a $6 million entry range. What we do is that with that $6 million, we try to see what districts is suitable for entry purchase. And within that district, what are some of the key enclaves right here? And within that few enclaves, what are some of the behavior pricing in terms of the state or condition of those particular landed homes? And this is an example of how we categorize. And in terms of categorization, we use this particular technique that we've developed, and this is called disparity effect. But disparity effect has a lot of subcomponents, and one subcomponent is time. Let me just share with you one example. This is an example of how we help our client to decide on what landed home and what particular type of landed home should they go for if, let's say, they have a $6 million range. And thus, when you look at this, maybe let me pose you a question. If, let's say, for example, you have a choice to make between a Cat 1 home compared to a Cat 4 home, which will you go for? And that brings us to a quick quiz. So maybe you can participate in the comment section in the chat box below. And let me maybe share this scenario. If let's say you get to see the price movement over the last 2 years, and let's say you have been trying to stay out of the market because you have been trying to observe the landed market, and maybe after 2 years of waiting, you have decided, hey, I don't want to wait anymore, I want to come into the market. 2 years ago, an inter-terrace in this particular district, for Cat 1 home that are meant for rebuild is at $3 million. A brand new from developer is at $5 million, and of course, Cat 2 is at 3.5, 4.5. And then 24 months later, 2 years later, because you have waited for 2 years, the price appreciated to this category. So you could actually have bought a landed home 2 years ago at $3 million for an old landed, but now if you want to buy an old landed, it's at $4 million. And now, if you want to buy a brand new landed, it's at $6 million. But 2 years ago, you can buy a brand new inter-terrace for $5 million. So now, because we cannot go back in time, we cannot go back to the year 2021, we are already at 2023, maybe just put in your own opinion. What will you buy? Will you buy the $4 million home now? Will you buy the $4.5 million home now? Will you buy the 5.5 million home, or will you buy this? So take note that we're not talking about this because you cannot go back to this already. This is in 2021. This is 2023. Which type of inter-terrace will you buy in this particular district? Maybe let's take about 5 to 10 seconds for you to answer. While I enjoy a little bit of our coffee in the office. Alright, so I hope that you have keen some of your comments and your opinions. And one of the ways that we use disparity effect on time is to look at the percentage gain. So for this particular scenario, in this particular district, with this particular budget, for this particular client of ours, we actually recommended them to go for a brand new home directly from the developer. And when we talk about developers' brand new home, we're not talking about the mega kind of launch. We are talking about homes that are available in the market, because there are a lot of boutique developers that like to buy old land, tear down, subdivide, rebuild into brand new homes. Sometimes they have one home for sale, sometimes they have 3, sometimes they have 5. So these are the homes that we are talking about. We categorize as Cat 4 homes. So why is it that we recommend this client to go for the Cat 4 home? Is because if we look at the past 24 months of appreciation, the Cat 4 category home appreciated the least, and it has the most bang for the buck value, meaning that it has the most gain in terms from a buyer's perspective, because you are only paying technically 20% more. So compared to a Cat 1 home, it actually appreciated 33%. And take note that when you buy a Cat 1 home, you're only buying the land, because you're going to tear down the house. Most of them are single story or 1.5 story. So you're actually paying 33% more for a Cat 1 home. And take note, once you buy a Cat 1 home, you still have to spend the rebuild cost on the land itself. And right now, rebuild cost is about $400 plus minus, depending on the quality and material that you want to have. And let's say you want to build a 4,000 or 5,000 square build-out area, take 5,000 multiplied by 400, that's about $2 million of construction, and that will then add on to your land cost of 4 mil. So 4 plus 2 million is 6 million, and then you still have to spend about 18 to 24 months for rebuild. And thus, for this particular scenario, we recommend our client to go for this. They can immediately move in. They are only having a 20% uptick from the past, because they have chose to wait and not enter the market. But of course, if they have entered the market, it will be fantastic for them. But it's okay. I mean, time has passed. We cannot go back to the past. And thus, this is just an example of how we share with our clients to take advantage of this disparity effect time selection kind of technique. Now, this is the disparity effect that we have developed in PropertyLimBrothers. And another example of how we have helped a client that was hunting for a D5 home was that whenever we start our analysis, we always go by firstly understanding what is available in the particular enclave in District 5 in this, for this example. And then we estimate the build-up cost for them in terms of rebuilding. We then estimate their rental if they need to rent, and then we calculate the total cost. And then from there, we try to ascertain what is a suitable choice for them. And for this particular scenario, because of the particular requirements of this client, we actually recommended them to go for an inter-terrace of this quantum. And that's actually based on their requirement. And we actually recommend them to rebuild on their own, because at that particular point in time, in the year 2021, it was better to go for a rebuild of their own, because the disparity towards the brand new is actually pretty far apart. So it actually makes more savings from the buyer's potential point of view in order to rebuild on their own to save more cost. Now, the second factor under the IPA model in our moat analysis is disparity effect based on the types of landed home. And let me share with you what is this about. So when we talk about disparity effect in the types of landed home, this is a very good example because we were using this to help another client in Q3 of 2022 in D19. So in D19, Q3 of 2022, what is available in the market is that for inter-terraces, you can get into the inter-terrace market at about $3.2 to $3.5 million. And of course, right now, the market has shifted. Right now, if you want to get into an inter-terrace in D19, at least you must have about $3.6 to $4 million. And the choices are dwindling. So in probably about 6 to 8 months' time, my own personal forecast is that to get a D19 inter-terrace, you need to have at least $4 million. So that is what the price range in terms of movement has been to. So let's go back to the Q3 2022, just about 2 quarters ago. So we're actually helping our client to look at whether should they go for inter-terrace or semi-D. So if you were this client, which will you go for? And of course, this is quiz time again. So if you have a budget of $4 to $4.5 million, which type of landed home should you go to? If you have this objective, which is similar to our client, is that they want to see a maximum ROI in 5 years' time, because in 5 years' time they might want to move. So they have a 5 years kind of investment horizon. Of course, it's not a hard and fast rule. They can exit in 8 years. That's fine. But they hope to be able to buy the correct type of landed home to be able to exit in 5 years for maximum ROI. So if you were them, which one will you go for? Would you go for inter-terrace at 3.2 to 3.5 million, but you have to rebuild on your own? A $4 million inter-terrace that's meant for A&A, a $4.5 million, which is the max of the budget, that you still have to pump in maybe $300,000 to $500,000 for renovation at a later stage. Of course, this is out of your budget range because you only have $4 to $4.5 million. Or will you go for a Cat 1 semi-D at this range? Because the rest of the semi-D you cannot afford. So assuming you have $4 to $4.5 million, which one will you go for? Maybe just take the next 10 seconds to key in your answer in the comment box below. And it'd be very interesting to look at some of your perspectives as well. So also, just a recap, if you have just joined us halfway, we're very open to any questions that you have about the landed market. Do key in your questions in the comment box, and what our team will do is that at the end of the webinar, we'll tabulate everything, and within the next 1 week, we'll compile in a PDF pack, and we'll send it out to you, back to your email, using the email that you've registered with our webinar. Also, if you stay tuned towards the end of today's landed webinar, there's going to be some freebies toolkit. So our research team has compiled a PDF pack of median, quantum, as well as median PSF pricing of landed homes in the latest months, and this is going to help you in hunting for a landed home in different districts in Singapore. So do stay tuned to the end of today's webinar. There's going to be a QR code that's available towards the end for you to scan, and then you can just download the PDF pack immediately. So which one will you choose? And based on our analysis, we actually have shared with our client that this will be one of the best choices that they can make. The reason is because we noticed a shift in Q3 of last year that the inter-terrace market in this particular district, in this particular enclave, has already appreciated by a high percentage margin. And now it's time for the semi-D market to have an upward momentum at a faster rate than inter-terraces, because inter-terraces has already moved up very aggressively from 2020 to 2022. And this is now the season for the semi-Ds in this district, in this enclave, to kickstart the trajectory. So this was actually the advice that we gave to this particular client. And of course, now quiz 2. And assuming right now that your budget has increased to $5 to $6 million, which type should you buy? And of course, the objective again is in 5 years' time. And this is the same table. So if you have $5 to $6 million budget, which one will you go? And take note, if you have $5 to $6 million, you can buy all 4 categories in the inter-terrace. You can buy a brand new one from a developer, which is very beautiful. Now some of the inter-terraces, they have lift, they have even an air well, beautiful light coming into the center core of the home, 6 bedrooms, and very large build-ups, perfect. They can even park 2 to 3 cars. The design is, of course, evolving over the years. It's really fantastic for the landed buyer. You can also go for brand new semi-Ds as well, because there are some brand new semi-Ds at 2,152 square feet or 2,002 square feet or 2,003 square feet. That's at about $6 million in this particular district. And which one will you choose then if you have $5 to $6 million? So just take about 5 to 10 seconds to key in. And take note, you can go for any type, because you can go for all 8 spectrum. Of course, you couldn't go for the higher quantum ones, which the land might be bigger, let's say 3,000 square feet land, and the developer calls for a bigger quantum. And for this particular scenario, we advise our clients to go for this, in particularly the $6 million type. Now the rationale is because of this, is that the disparity between the brand new inter-terrace and the semi-D inter-terrace is too close. When the disparity is too close, it means that in future, if you were to buy a brand new inter-terrace in this particular district and enclave, you're going to face steeper competition 5 years down the road when you want to sell inter-terrace. Because take note that once you buy it, in future it becomes a resale property. And once you buy this home at $5 million or maybe even $5.5 million, you're going to face stiffer competition from the semi-Ds as well. Because your future buyer is going to be in a dilemma because they can just top up about $1 million to own a semi-D. And a semi-D is 2 jumps in terms of status categorization. Inter-terrace, corner terrace, and semi-D is actually a 2 jump in terms of status. And sometimes when you talk about the status, whether you go for a corner or a semi-D is also very important, because if a corner is very close to the price of a semi-D, that closeness in terms of disparity can also cause confusion to your future buyers, because a semi-D is always seen as a higher status compared to a corner terrace. So these are just some aspects of example to share with you. Now, in September 2021, this was exactly the advice in this particular episode. We talk about the micro trends in landed market, and we talk about this disparity forming up in a lot of districts. So do follow closely to our Nuggets on the Go, because sometimes we just dish out advices generally to the market, but make sure that you have already done your homework. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always comment, and then we'll try to help you as much as we can. Now, 2021, we actually advise a lot of clients to start looking at the entry level of semi-D homes because inter-terrace has risen too much. So this was just one example. And another example of a disparity effect happening is that you always have this up and down ripple effect. So inter-terrace is always the predominant movement. When a market moves up, inter-terrace is always the first to go up, because if you have a lot of upward pressure from upgraders from condominiums or from HDB market that wants to enter into the landed market, and take note, because this is basically the Singaporean demand and landed homes are only available for Singaporeans, they will usually enter into the inter-terrace market first, because in terms of entry level, price quantum is more palatable. And once you see inter-terrace starts to move up very aggressively in terms of pricing, the next to move will be the semi-D homes. And that was exactly what happened in 2021 until today. And let's have a quick look also at some of the performance of landed homes. We talk about this in some of our episodes. There's a chasm gap that has happened over the last 11 years. And this chasm gap increases the very fact that landed properties now is a wealth preservation asset. The reason is because, firstly, you're buying an asset with only 73,000 of supply, but as price increase, supply remains stagnant. And that is good news for people that owns this asset, because your asset value is not diluted away because of the fixed amount of supply. Secondly is that the holding power of the people here increases, because as their value increase, the holding power of the landed owners increases in the sense that they find it less motivating to fire sale their property. There's no need to fire sale their property because their value has increased. They can take equity arrangement on the value appreciation of their home. When they sell it, they take their profit gain and buy another landed home, or maybe they buy 2 landed homes using one name each, or maybe they buy a bigger landed home. And thus, this has created a landed market in a spectrum that it now becomes like a wealth preservation safe haven status. This gap was formed because of the introduction of the ABSD, TDSR, and of course a lot of cooling measures, and thus the split of pricing performance started. And this is showing a very good opportunity for home buyers that have the capability to enter into a landed market scene. We have also seen appreciation in terms of landed. This is the blue line. Of course, non-landed. So of course, in the last 3 years, both properties has appreciated. And when you see this is actually the chasm gap that we have been talking about since 2010. And both lines are not touching one another. Homes also have a growth rate. These are all landed residential homes. 62% growth rate from 2012 to now. In terms of apartments also have a growth rate of 73%. And then landed homes, just in the last 2 over years, 31% growth rate. Condominiums in the last 2 years, 24% growth rate in terms of price PSF. And I'm going to skip over to this portion here, which is the IBA segment. So these are the 7 factors that will help you to increase your buyer audience in the event if you are trying to buy a landed home that is easier to exit next time. So of course we have 7 factors. We are not going to cover them all. And coming back to this main statement is that you have to ensure that you buy something that ticks off more check boxes so that it's easier to exit in future. And we want to introduce you this new concept, and this is called the seasons of change. So what is this? This is also a subset of our disparity effect methodology in PLB. And basically, this is of the methodology that we always want to invest in a landed that gives you the ease of exit so that you can swap to another landed home that has a better performance in another season. Because take note that in every season, different landed enclaves and different types of landed home, they perform differently. Just refer back to the example that I was sharing back then of what we have talked about in 2021, 2022 is that the inter-terraces have moved up too rapidly and their growth is a little bit more plateau now, and thus this is the season for semi-D to start moving, starting from 2021, 2022 onwards, even until today. And this is a glimpse of the free PDF pack that we're going to share with you at the end of today's webinar. We have actually segregated the annual median quantum of terrace houses by district level, detached homes as well as semi-D. That's going to help you to ascertain the seasons of change methodology. And under the IBA model, the first thing that we want to share with you today is the future proving based on configuration. So we have 12 future proving configuration under this first factor is that if you can tick off as many check boxes here, the ease of exit in future increases. And the first 6 basically is having a lift. The minimum amount of bedrooms that a lot of buyers on the ground are looking for is at least 5 to 6 ensuite bedrooms because of the multi-gen concept. People want to buy homes with more bedrooms, and let's say you have 3 children. 3 children are already occupying 3 rooms. You yourself is in the master room, that's 4 bedrooms. Your parents is 1 room. And of course, you want to have 1 spare bedroom for a study room or maybe as a work from home office. And on top of that, we are also referring to this pure legitimate bedrooms, meaning that it's not including the helper's room. So make sure that there's also a helper's room as well at point number 4. 2 cars minimum, and wet and gourmet kitchen, external yard bath. In terms of the yard WC at level 1, laundry zone, these are some of the things that a lot of buyers are asking for in today's market based on countless viewings that were conducted over the past 36 months. And of course, there are also another 12 factors that we'll only talk about in the later webinars throughout the year. Now, second thing is that I think this will be a very high interest list that you want to have is basically the avoidance list. These are the things that you want to avoid when hunting for a landed home. And of course, this is just half the avoidance list. So we have a 24 avoidance list right here. And of course, I need to put in a disclaimer, is that these are collective feedback that myself and our team has collected over the years. And the very fact that we have sold so many landed homes over the past years allows us to gain ground feedback from buyers directly on the ground. And these are not hearsay, these are actual obstacles that we look at. These are actual obstacles that buyers look at. And of course, when we sell homes, if you look at our home tours intently, we love to talk about obstacles and we love to offer alternative so-called alternative perspective, alternative solution, because there are a lot of things that cannot be changed. For example, the number cannot be changed. If you're facing the main road, it cannot be changed. If you're facing the expressway, it cannot be changed. But what are some of the pros and cons of this home? And most importantly is that we have to understand the fact that in Singapore, there's no perfect home. It's impossible to tick off this entire list. And what we're trying to ascertain is that the more you can tick off, the easier it is to exit. Because if you buy a home with lesser obstacles from your future buyer, you're going to face lesser obstacles in future. It means that it increases the speed of exit, increases the price of exit. So this is just an example of the avoidance list that we always have our clients to tick off. And of course, we always share with our clients, you cannot find a home that has full 24. There's no full marks here. If you have like at least 50 to 60% is already a very good bonus. All right. So last but not least, the RUO hexagon. So these are the RUO hexagon. And of course, this list belongs to the category of the costly mistakes that buyers make when buying a landed land. So some example is like this: if you buy a land with road reserve cut lines and you didn't do your homework initially, this might come as a shock, because when you're trying to exercise your option, your lawyer might warn you, hey, do you know that there's a road reserve line and stuff like that? So it's very important to do your homework at the start. And take note that when you're facing a main category of roads, there is a deeper setback requirement for your landed home as well. And thus, when you intend to rebuild, you will have to allocate a setback portion to cut back into your land, and then that means that you can rebuild lesser. So some of the key things to take note: road reserve line, of course sewer line that cuts across the land as well. Soil condition is something that you need to take note of. Non-approved renovation, and of course roofing issues, water leakages or unsafe renovation, as well as some of the telltale signs of water leakages as well. So when we talk about purchasing a landed home for some of our clients, our main practice is that whenever there's a purchase, what we do is that we share with our clients that there's an option to engage one of our key partners who also have the experience of a chartered surveyor to come and have a look at the potential home that you want to put in an offer, just to look at a home in a sense that you want to reduce unexpected outcomes, because sometimes with the naked eye it's very hard to look at a lot of things, but with an expert's lens it's then easier to look at what are some of the plus and minuses of this home, so that as a buyer you can make a decisive decision on, let's say if there are very serious water leakage issue, at least you are preempt in the sense that you know how much you need to invest to solve the water leakages. Or let's say there is some problems with this particular soil condition of this land that you intend to buy and rebuild, what are some of the additional costs that you need to put in when you're rebuilding the home. So having an expert eye to look at the home before you put in the down payment is extremely important, and that's one of the value added service that our PRB consultants do for our clients on the ground. And when you have an expert following you, and you can make a decisive and wise decision, this gives you the power to walk away from unfavorable deals or be in a better negotiation position if you are buying a landed home. Alright, so now is the golden moment, because this is the main topic of today's webinar. Should I rebuild A&A or buy a brand new landed home this year? And of course, I do not want to disappoint you, but I need to share with you this PLB journey maker, because there's no clear-cut cookie cutter answer to that particular question. So of course this is not a trick question, but the main truth is that there's no pure cookie cutter answer to this. Because if you've been with me from the start of this webinar till now for the past almost 1 hour, you'll start to realize that it really depends on a lot of functional factors, and a lot of it is dependent on this key factor called the disparity effect. And this journey maker is basically how we help our clients to ascertain what action to take. So basically, if you are somebody that is entering or re-entering into the landed market, or maybe purchasing another landed home, the key fundamental thing is here. These are the 5 main points that we help our clients. Firstly is to understand, if let's say you are brand new to the landed market, to understand why landed is a very different asset investment class. And this is a perfect home if you want space, you want to own the land, you want to own a freehold or 999 years title, you want more bedrooms, but at the same time, you want to own an asset that has very inelastic relationship to supply and price. And you are sitting on a strong price growth asset in a very limited supply kind of asset volume. Now, once you understand that, then we definitely have to look at this key component in part B. What type of landed home should I buy with this particular range that I have? And this is adopting the concept of seasons of change. And this is an extremely important concept because everybody has different quantum range that they can enter into a landed home in the particular season of their journey. So assuming right now you have an investment range of about $7 million, then we'll have to reverse engineer for you to look at this $7 million in the particular district of your choice, because if this is going to be a home that you and your kids are going to enjoy living in, the district preference will also be of utmost importance. And from that district level, we deep dive into certain enclaves, and then we have a look at disparity effect over time, disparity effect over Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4 on what type of home should you go for, and disparity effect of the types of landed home that you should go for. And going back to Cat 1 and 4, that is the way that we can then determine whether should you rebuild A&A, renovate, or buy brand new in Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that is a combination of applying techniques in C and D for us to ascertain using the lender mode analysis on reducing unexpected outcomes, on increasing price acceptability for your future buyers, increasing buyer audiences for your future exit as well, so that in 5 to 10 years time, if let's say you want to switch from your inter-terrace to a semi-D, you want to switch from your semi-D to a detached home, you can do that easily without having to put your property in the market for, let's say, 12 to 18 months and you still couldn't find a buyer because of the fact that there's a lot of key components that is blocking the sale. And thus, importantly, to answer this question, it has to follow a to E concept right here so that we can reverse engineer and see whether should you rebuild A&A or buy brand new based on the range that you have, based on the season that you're in, based on the district that you're after, and based on the particular enclave that you're looking at. And that is how PLB reverse engineer for our clients using the PLB lender mode analysis method. And of course, a recap of Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4 is basically at this table. And maybe just a quick glimpse of one of the homes that we have already sold. This is an example of a Cat 1 home that's suitable for rebuild at Wasco. You can head back to the video on our PropertyLimBrothers YouTube channel to have a look at the video in depth. So it's this particular home right here, very suitable for rebuild. That's an example of Cat 1 home. Of course, when you rebuild, you have the choice to go up to 2.5 or 3.5 story. Of course, most of the time when people buy 2.5 story kind of potential homes, they will consider to build a basement for additional build-up area. And this is an example in Chelsea Village of an inter-terrace that's very suitable for renovation or a light A&A. And an example is like this. And of course, you can head back to our channel to look at this video in depth as well. And sometimes when we're representing our sellers to sell their homes, we prepare landed reports like this. And this is just an example of some of the landed reports that we have done for our home sellers wherever we help them to prepare their homes for sale, because this kind of landed reports showcase the options that potential buyers can have, and of course we break them down into the amount of estimated build-up that they can go for, the type of home, whether you can actually convert this into semi-D or detached, and of course in terms of the pricing, in terms of whether you want to retain the envelope just for renovation, or you want to tear down and rebuild, or you want to convert it and rebuild into a detached, together with the costing for inserting a lift, EV charger and things like that. And of course, some sample layouts that we always help potential buyers to ascertain. And of course, that will help both home sellers as well as home buyers to make a better decision. Now, a quick update from some of our partners. Basically, the observation for first quarter 2023 in terms of landed pricing is that for A&A category, right now is at about $250 to $300 per square foot. And take note, when we calculate this kind of pricing, we're talking about the build-up area. So for example, if let's say your A&A is for an area estimated at about 2,000 square feet, then you take that and multiply by the cost. And reconstruction is at about $320 to $375. Brand new tear down and rebuild is at about $375 to $400 upwards, depending on the type of materials. Of course, all these are subjected to site condition and soil topography. And when we look at landed pricing, we always talk about the land PSF, but when we talk about doing work on the build-up, we always talk about the build-up area. So this is just a quick sharing on the categorization. Also, there are 6 observations of what is happening on the ground. This is very useful for you if you're planning to rebuild a home. So Netlink Trust, of course, it has increased lead time. Now it's about 5 months for fresh application. SP Power upgrade right now is at about 4 months backlog. There's also a lot of interest for EV provision. And do remember to consult with your electrician, LEW and M&E consultant. Sanitary fittings, of course, take note that not all online purchases will be allowed for submission, and they have to be approved by a licensed plumber. Imported sanitary as well, you can take up to 4 months for international shipping. And of course, there's also a lot of safety provision and heightened kind of protection, site supervision and compliance documentation needed due to a recent spate of construction incident and death incidents as well during the construction of homes. So these are the latest observation in the market on the ground. Hope that will help you. And last but not least, coming to our PLB's methodology. So for landed homes, we follow the journey maker in order to help our clients make a very decisive decision. You can also adopt this principal approach if you are hunting for a landed home on the ground yourself. And of course, we use our PLB landed moat analysis to a great extent. And our brand over the years has been built on relationships and of course on expertise as well, and our team is extremely passionate in the real estate space and we want to do good work in the space, and that's why our tagline is real estate with integrity. We always believe when it comes to marketing homes, we do not want to market them hastily because you want to exit from this home and make a meaningful exit and a meaningful purchase. So it's very important that you do very solid marketing for your home in order to attract the right buyer that appreciates your home. And the old passive method, we feel that is very restrictive and limited in terms of exposure. That's why we also enhance our thinking to reverse engineer how homes are being marketed and sold. And instead of having the traditional approach of only one agent selling a home, ours is an assembly of experts in a team model, and every listing is being handled by a team of experts that are very good in what they do. And of course, that kickstarts all the way from the analysis and pricing analysis phase where our consultants meet our clients, and that then kickstarts the entire journey of digital marketing, home tour production, post-production, and then when it comes to marketing, viewing, and actual selling of the home towards the negotiation and the final phase, that takes an entire team to help our clients together. So sometimes when our clients are on board with PLB, they will say, oh, your chat group got different teammates that actually I can ask questions about. And of course, we do not want to go back to the one-man model, and which is why you see there's a lot of collaboration and teamwork. But every home is definitely handled by two listing managers that are the key contact point for our clients. So these two listing managers, they are in charge of the entire start to finish with our clients, so that our clients also know who are the key people to speak with. And we work very closely with our clients all the way from home staging towards the final sale. We update them very, very regularly on a weekly basis, and you will be able to get to see all the start point from home staging towards marketing, home tour shoot, until the end with our listing managers. We also love to transform physical space, but of course you have seen how we have done it with architecture visualization as well. And because of these things that we're doing, we're very happy that we don't just sell properties, we also sell them at a very good speed for our clients in terms of median speed. And over the past 24 months, 62% of our PLB sellers, they sell higher. And these are some signature strategies that we have when it comes to investing in the next home. And we adopt condominium moat analysis as well as the landed moat analysis. We use the disparity effect to a huge extent. And the next webinar that's upcoming is on Thursday, 13 April 2023. That will be at 8 p.m. We hope to see you on this next webinar, because for this webinar, we're going to talk about analysis between newly TOB condominiums, new launch condominiums, as well as resale condominiums. And we're going to compare them from a buyer's point of view of what should you do and which one should you enter into in this current season of change. And I think it's going to be very interesting if you are really now observing the market. You're trying to analyze whether should you go for a TOP one, a resale one, or a new launch. We hope to see you on this particular webinar. And last but not least, we have also recently launched our new launch banter series on our PLB Insights YouTube channel, as well as our banter series on the Nuggets on the Go channel on YouTube. Meantime, I want to thank you for coming for today's webinar. It's fantastic to see you, and we hope to see you on the next upcoming webinars as well as the Landed Convention. Take care in the meantime and have a great week ahead, and we want to see you soon. Take care.